Okay, that sounds pretty good. How many? No, no, Grandpa. EV training is for every Pokemon. It doesn't just have to be EV. How many do you have? No, no. EV training is different. Yeah, you are training an EV. Yeah, yes, EV is a Pokemon, but EVs are they stand for no, that's a Digimon. No, that's a Yu-Gi-Oh character. Okay, Grandpa, I'm gonna have to go over and help you delete your browser history. Okay, I'll show you what EVs are later on. Okay, you can keep doing EV training. I mean, you can keep training your EVs. Okay, I'll see you later. I got to do a video. All right, see you, Grandpa. Bye. Okay, wow, this is really cool. We got a reveal for Hawlucha, the Mega Form. I really like this. I think this is really cool. I really liked the Mega Victory Bell reveal, but this was neat too. I prefer the horror theme of the Victory Bell thing as a reveal just because I enjoy horror stuff. This was very cool. I really like the design on this. So I want to discuss a couple things that we see in the trailer. If we have not met yet, my name is Jarrell. I develop games. At the end of the video, I'll share a little bit of a project that I'm working on as well, and I hope you'll stick around till then. I've got some cool stuff to share with you. First, we'll take a look at the trailer. So we won't look at this cinematic thing, we'll look at the trailer, and it shows a couple interesting things. There are some things that I found interesting just as a developer from an artistic standpoint, and I can see that they're making some changes and improvements and adjustments over the other trailers that we have seen and the demos that we've seen. It looks like they're still working on the game and still improving and changing some things. So I really like this. What do you guys think of Mega Hawlucha? I think it's perfect. I don't think you could have done it any better. Let's go ahead and take a look at the trailer. We'll be pausing and unpausing throughout this. Now, I'm just going to point out some things that I thought were quite interesting. Now, something I've noticed here is there's a significant amount of specularity when it comes to the terrain here. We've not really seen this kind of specularity, nor have we seen this kind of oblique, low angle in other trailers. You can see that the material of the ground here is reflecting the light in a way that looks something that came out of more of a Scarlet and Violet sort of aesthetic, where you can see the buildings don't have that kind of specular look to them. The Pokemon don't generally have that kind of specularity. So I thought this was interesting. It's something that we haven't seen in other trailers. It's a little bit incongruous with the other visuals. So I'm not sure if this is early in development or late in development, but it certainly looks a little different. And I'm not sure if the foot just clipped in there. I'm just noticing that just now. No, it doesn't clip in it. That character's moving. This is where the specularity again caught my attention, because it's catching the light and it's reflecting this quite brightly in a way that doesn't really match the rest of the environment. I'm not sure why that is, but I don't know if this is something that they just did for this sort of trailer to make it more eye-catching and to try and get small parts of the texture, the bumpiness, the normal maps to catch the light in an interesting way. Sometimes as developers, we have to over-tune things to try to achieve a particular visual effect or an end result, and in certain angles maybe they don't look quite right. So I'm not sure if this is something they will continue to adjust, but it sticks out a little bit too much here. Whereas in a scene like this, it looks fine. In general, I think most of the time the camera angles will look like this, overhead and up and above, and that is where that level of specularity does work. It looks fine. So I think it's a situation where they had to overtune it because they need it to look more contrasty from the angles at which they would normally be viewing. I would personally prefer if they put some grass here. There's a visual concept that I describe as breaking the line. You can see they've done it here. For example, you have visual lines here, and they're broken up by the bushes and the grass. By breaking up the line, you make things look more interesting and you make them look organic. For some reason, there's nothing here, and this looks quite plain. It does not look organic, and I don't mean that from a sense of make it look more natural. I mean make it look lived in and an actual environment, as opposed to something that's artificial and real. If they just put some little blades of grass like they did here, it would break the visual line and just make it look a little more interesting. we can see the texture on the ground here is a bit higher resolution than we have seen in trailers past. So this gives me some hope that at least on the Switch 2, the ground textures will be higher resolution. So I'm quite glad to see that. And there's something different about the visuals here. And I know they're running higher resolution here, which doesn't affect the quality, it only affects quantity. But they've done something else here. I'm not sure if it's the lighting on the characters' clothes. Like you can see a little bit more of the highlights real time in the hair here. There's something that's a little bit more eye-catching about this. Now, this game looks best, based on what I've seen from trailers, it tends to look best during sunset time because they are not afraid to push the color dynamic. They make things vibrant and warm, and it adds density to the atmosphere. It makes things look nice, and it also adds this nice warm rim lighting to the edges of the characters that it's eye-catching. It's very appealing to look at. Again, we can see some examples of breaking the visual line with the grass here. You can see they've broken those lines. If we were to have just this structure here, that'd be a boring line, but they've put grass there and they've broken that up. So this to me tells me they understand the concept of breaking the line. There's just some in parts of the environment where maybe it's not finished. This, I quite like this. I'm just noticing this, the imperfections that we see in these pavers here as they go up against the grass here. You see the lines are not just perfectly straight and harsh. There are some imperfections to it, and that gives it this organic, lived-in feeling. And that's quite nice. I'm glad to see that. It makes it more interesting to look at, makes it look less artificial. This guy's flexing to his friends. These are some rough, harsh, quick balls. I suppose in general we wouldn't really get to see these 3D models that close. That's why they've used a low poly count version. And this is obviously just cinematically scripted. Obviously, you know, we wouldn't really get to see these up close that often. But for me personally, I know the Switch 2 is pretty strong. I would have just used higher poly count models for those balls. But I believe the developers are trying to keep things consistent across the Switch and the Switch 2, which to me tells me it's a little unfortunate from one aspect because it means the presentation of this game will not be as polished and refined as it could be because the Switch version is holding it back. On the other side of that, this means that the Switch users will get to enjoy the game. I didn't realize I was taking up so much space here. I'm just going to go ahead and minimize myself here. I should have paid a little closer attention to that there. Yeah, unfortunately, it means that the game is held back by the Switch version, but it also means more people will get to enjoy the game here. Okay, let's go ahead and step through this. And again, I just really appreciate the rim lighting on Hawlucha, just because the main portion of his body is just one tone. It's this red, and it would be quite dull if it was a standard type of shading or if there wasn't that much, but this rim lighting really helps him stand out and have definition. You can see his arms against his body there, so I do quite like that. Now, I have noticed something about the lighting, and I'll point it out, especially since we've seen extended gameplay. The color temperature of the street lamps are more saturated and dynamic, and they're interesting to look at. Here's something that we notice is that these street lights, we have a bloom effect, which is a haloing effect that adds a sense of blurriness when light pixels intersect with dark pixels. But the color temperature is quite different from what we've seen in other trailers and gameplay videos. It's a warmer color. So a warm color is something like yellow, red, pink, orange, and a cold color is something like blue or a very pale green or cyan. Those are cold colors, and in general the city has quite a cold color to it because of the buildings, because it takes place at night, you know, for some of it. Having these colors more saturated and be more warm is an excellent artistic choice. It's an excellent visual expression to make the environment more interesting. I'll just go back a frame, and it just makes things interesting because we have this cold area here with the colder colors. I would like to see a little bit more contrast in terms of the use of lighting, but we do have warmer colors here coming from the street lamp, and it just makes the environments look more interesting. Photography is about creating an interesting dynamic between light and dark, between different tones. So we have warmer colors here and darker colors here, and this is something that we generally don't see considered much in Pokemon games. So I'm very glad to see some more dynamic use of color, more dynamic use of lighting, and I do like that. It seems like there's a post-screen process here that increases the contrast for certain moments, and something like this looks interesting. I really like the way this looks, and I'm glad that they've leaned more into something that's visually more interesting. So we have darker areas of the image here, and the street lamps become more pronounced and vibrant and just warm, and it makes the environments interesting. You can tell it's a post-screen process because it's occurring dynamically, and then it fades out, the effect fades out, and then the scene becomes a little bit more washed out again. So I wish that the game looked more like this, with this dynamic. You see, you have this nice, vibrant, warm color tone, and then it eases into these shadows, and it makes the scene interesting to look at. It's vibrant, it's contrasty, but this is only momentary. As you can see, the game normally looks like that, which I think is a bit more plain. Normally looks like that, and you can see it's quite dull, less contrasty, and but at least it's better than what we've seen previously, where things are more flat. This is just more flat. There isn't a lot of contrast and dynamic to it. I would really like to see some adjustments before the game launches to where it can look more interesting like this. This is nice. I quite like this look. So we'll see. This is a very cool design. I really like this. It's perfect. This is perfect for Hawlucha. There's a bit of fighting going on here. So yeah, that's all really I wanted to point it out, is at least we get to see some dynamic. It's not a lot. I would say the game would really benefit from more. You can see overall the composition of this is quite flat. This is all just one flat tone here, but we do at least have an area where there's some brightness here and a change of tonal values. There isn't a whole lot of textural contrast in this scene. I would have liked to see this framed with more dynamic. We can see a little bit of the moonlight coming through. What I actually can see is that the building is casting a shadow here, so there is a slightly darker area here, and then this is slightly lighter, but it's still not enough to make this punchy and visually dynamic. You can see a little bit here, you know, where the building is casting a shadow there. A little bit of moonlight here. I would like to see more of that. Overall, I think it's an improvement over what we've seen. I see the game is getting better and better and better, and I am very much looking forward to this. But I've been spending quite a bit of time looking at Digimon Time Strangers, and just, oh man, the visual expression in that, it's just the art, the level of mastery that goes into the art for Digimon Time Strangers is I'm so impressed with it. So I would like to see a little bit more, just a little bit more dynamic when it comes to the visuals and expression, especially when it comes to the tonal values used in scenes like this with composition. But I'm glad to see this game is looking better and better, and I hope that it's excellent when it launches. I'm really looking forward to this. Okay, that's what I wanted to look at today. So I want to share a little bit of my projects that I'm working on with you. So let's go ahead and just get back to the green screen. Rock on. Now I'm working on a monster raising and battling game called Goo Buddies. This is an IP that I've been planning and developing for about 2 years, and I've been working on just weird, fun character designs. So I'm trying to wrap up all of the 3D modeling for the Goo Buddies this week. I want to see how much I can cram in. So this is going to be a new IP for me, for my studio, and I'm been creating it and planning it in a way to where I can create these character models and have a consistent visual style, because I want to create a lot of homebrew games as well for older consoles. Things like the NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, Genesis, Game Gear, and DS, PSP. I want to be able to create games on those platforms, but I don't make money from the homebrew games. I distribute them for free, so there's a limited amount of time I can spend on homebrew games. So I've created Goo Buddies in a way to where I can create my commercial titles with that, and I can sell that on modern platforms, and then I can make free games in the Goo Buddy series for older platforms, just because I love making games on older platforms. It's wish fulfillment for me, but also it's a way for me to push myself as a developer, as a programmer, and as an artist. I want to make sure that I don't stagnate. I keep getting better and better. Nobody is the absolute best at everything, and no one is ever really at their 100% peak when it comes to ability, because you can always push yourself to improve and get better. And that's one of the reasons why I do free homebrew games on older platforms, is I just want to keep pushing myself to keep improving, and it's so much fun. So Goo Buddies will let me do that. I can render out the 3D models, I can render them into 2D sprites, and then I can make games on older platforms using those models. So you want to see something really neat? Nintendo's not here, are they? Okay, probably don't look. This is a 3DS. This is a retail one. I wasn't an official developer for the 3DS, so I can't show you the development hardware. This is just a retail unit running homebrew. This is a build of Goo Buddies just running. Obviously, it's just a prototype debug room, but just to show that I will have a version of the first Goo Buddies game that I launch. I will have a version free that will launch unofficially on 3DS via homebrew. I'll have a version on PS Vita. And there's also this console is so cool. This is Magic X 040. It runs Android, and it's a vertical screen. It's so cool. Now, they've designed this so that it emulates DS games. It's blowing out under the lights, isn't it? Yeah. But it's just so cool. I'm going to make a version of Goo Buddies, and I'll make sure that it's perfectly optimized for this hardware, and it'll be designed for the vertical screen, so you can play Goo Buddies on this device. So these are really cool. It also is available in black as well. This is such a cool device. It has a touchscreen as well, so if you're into emulating DS games, you can do that. This is actually my game Clasher Ball running on there. I need to do more work to get Clasher Ball to fit on this vertical screen, because Clasher Ball was designed for a landscape screen. Thanks for enjoying the video. Thanks for checking in with me, and I hope you're looking forward to Pokemon Legends Z-A as much as I am. I think all of you have sort of figured it out by now. I'm a massive fan of monster racing games, just based on the videos I've been doing recently. It's one of my favorite genres. I absolutely love monster racing games, and I've been wanting to do a commercial monster racing game for years and years. So this is finally my chance. So I'm just working super hard on that right now. So if my videos get shorter and simpler over the next few weeks, it's because I'm finishing up Goo Buddies. Okay, thanks very much. And I just want to give a genuine thank you to my Patreon supporters who have been supporting me. I really appreciate you. Thank you all for watching the videos. If you would like to support me, if you're enjoying the videos here, if you're looking forward to more homebrew releases from me, the support that I receive here does let me spend time away from my commercial products, so I can just do cool, fun stuff to share with you guys. I do purchase a bunch of props and costumes for this channel, so everything that comes from Patreon does really help for that. Thanks very much. Take care of yourselves. All right, I'll see you around.